This oil is in every kitchen, and it's destroying your heart. Let me ask you a simple question. What's the one ingredient almost every person uses to cook their meals, roast their vegetables, or fry their eggs, without ever questioning it? It's in your pantry. You've probably used it today. And yet, you might be unknowingly damaging your heart every time you use it. We're talking about vegetable oil. Yes, the so-called healthy option that's been marketed to us for decades. Corn oil, soybean oil, sunflower oil, canola oil, they're all in the same category. But here's the terrifying truth. These oils are not only highly processed, they also slowly poisoning your heart and arteries. Let's break this down. The origins of vegetable oil. Not what you think. First of all, where do these oils even come from? Most people don't stop to ask that. You squeeze olives to get olive oil, press coconuts for coconut oil, but corn, soybeans, cottonseed, how do you even get oil from those? The answer, with a lot of industrial processing. These oils are extracted using harsh chemical solvents, like hexane, then refined at extremely high temperatures, bleached to look more appealing, and deodorized to cover up the rancid smell. What you end up with is a clear, odorless oil that looks clean, but is far from natural. This wasn't always part of the human diet. In fact, before the 20th century, people didn't consume these oils at all. They cooked with animal fats, butter, ghee, or cold-pressed oils, like olive oil. So why the shift? Because these oils were cheap to produce and came with big profits. The food industry jumped on board, and marketing campaigns pushed the idea that animal fats were unhealthy and vegetable oils were the heart-smart alternative. But the science doesn't agree. What happens when you eat vegetable oil? Let's talk biology. Most vegetable oils are high in omega-6 fatty acids, specifically linoleic acid. Your body does need omega-6 south, but in tiny amounts. The problem is that most modern diets are completely overloaded with them, and that's where the trouble starts. Too much omega-6 creates an imbalance in your body's fat composition. This imbalance promotes inflammation, and chronic inflammation is the root of nearly every major disease, especially heart disease. Numerous studies have shown that high omega-6 intake is linked to increased risk of heart attacks, narrowing of arteries, elevated LDL cholesterol, higher blood pressure, increased oxidative stress. In other words, the very oil that was supposed to protect your heart is slowly destroying it from the inside. The myth of heart-healthy oils. Let's clear up a common misconception. You've probably seen labels on vegetable oil bottles that say things like cholesterol-free or heart-healthy. But here's the catch. Vegetable oils DAN-T contain cholesterol because they are plant-based. That doesn't automatically make them good for you. In fact, many of these oils become even more dangerous when heated. When you fry food in vegetable oil, it oxidizes and creates harmful byproducts like aldehydes, toxic compounds that damage cells, mutate DNA, and inflame your cardiovascular system. This is especially true for oils like corn oil, soybean oil, canola oil, safflower oil, sunflower oil. These are highly unstable when exposed to heat, and yet they're used in almost every restaurant and packaged food you buy. So not only are we cooking with these oils, we're soaking our food in them. The silent infiltration. How these oils took over our diet, you might think. Well, I don't really cook with vegetable oil, so I'm safe. But here's the catch. It's everywhere. Open your pantry. Look at the labels on crackers, chips, salad dressings, mayonnaise, nut butters, frozen meals, bread, baked goods. Chances are, you'll find one of these oils listed: soybean oil, canola oil, cottonseed oil, corn oil, or sunflower oil. Even so-called healthy products like granola bars or protein snacks often contain these oils. That means even if you've ditched the frying pan, you're probably still consuming these heart-damaging fats multiple times a day without realizing it. In fact, according to recent data, soybean oil alone accounts for over 7% of all calories consumed in the U.S. diet. That's not a typo. Nearly 1/10 of total daily calories in the average American diet comes from a single ultra-processed oil. And what's the result? A massive spike in chronic disease. Heart attacks are still the #1 cause of death worldwide, and the timeline matches perfectly with the explosion of industrial seed oils in our food system. Coincidence? Not likely. The link between vegetable oil and oxidative stress. Let's go deeper into the science. When your body processes large amounts of linoleic acid, the main fatty acid in vegetable oil, it becomes highly susceptible to oxidation. Why does that matter? Because oxidation triggers free radical damage. Think of free radicals as tiny chemical bullets firing away at your cells. Over time, this leads to damage in your arteries, tissues, and most importantly, the lining of your blood vessels, also called the endothelium. A damaged endothelium becomes inflamed. Cholesterol starts to stick to the walls. Plaque builds up, your arteries harden and narrow, and eventually a clot can form. That's when tragedy strikes: heart attack, stroke, or sudden cardiac death. And the scary part, you can feel perfectly healthy right up until the moment it happens. Vegetable oil doesn't cause pain. It doesn't trigger warning signs. It just quietly sets fire to your insides, a slow, invisible threat. What about canola oil? Let's pause on one oil in particular. Canola oil, it's everywhere. It's cheap. It's often marketed as refined light and even safe for heart health. But here's the problem. Canola oil was originally created from the rapeseed plant, which contains a toxin called erucic acid. After heavy refining, erucic acid levels were lowered, but not eliminated. And the genetic modification required to make canola oil safe has its own consequences. Modern canola oil is genetically modified, highly processed, and still rich in omega-6 fats. In animal studies, DIETs high in canola oil have been linked to memory loss, plaque buildup in arteries, increased blood pressure, liver and kidney stress. Yet it's used in almost every commercial kitchen and processed food item today. And here's the kicker. Most restaurants use blends of canola and soybean oils to save costs, doubling the inflammation in every bite. The truth about cholesterol and fats: back in the 1950s, we were told to fear saturated fat and cholesterol. This was based on the flawed lipid hypothesis, the idea that dietary fat clogs arteries. But modern research has overturned that myth. Studies now show that saturated fat from healthy sources like grass-fed butter, coconut oil, and even beef tallow does not increase the risk of heart disease in the general population. In fact, many traditional cultures that eat diets rich in animal fats have lower rates of heart disease. Meanwhile, processed vegetable oils, which replaced natural fats in our food supply, are now linked to atherosclerosis, chronic inflammation, increased risk of obesity and diabetes, metabolic syndrome. So we replaced butter with heart-healthy oils, and heart disease got worse. It's one of the greatest medical tragedies of the modern era. The shocking reality of frying oils. Let's talk about what happens when you heat these oils. Most vegetable oils have a low smoke point, meaning they break down quickly at cooking temperatures. When that happens, they produce toxic compounds like acrolein, trans fats, advanced lipid oxidation, end products, aldehydes. These byproducts are not just harmful, they're persistent. Once ingested, they get stored in your fat cells and cell membranes, where they interfere with hormone signaling, insulin sensitivity, and even your brain function. And worst of all, they accumulate over time. So even if you feel fine today, years of consuming fried or processed foods cooked in vegetable oil may be silently degrading your body from within. How the food industry keeps you hooked. If these oils are so harmful, why are they still in everything? The answer is simple: profit. Vegetable oils are incredibly cheap to produce. They have long shelf lives. They add crispy texture to fried foods. And most importantly, they're addictive. Less addictive. Studies show that ultra-processed foods often made with vegetable oils light up the same reward centers in the brain as sugar, nicotine, or cocaine, that crunch of chips. The greasy satisfaction of fast food, that's no accident. Food manufacturers engineer products to keep you coming back, while slowly harming your body in the process. And let's not forget the labeling tricks. Cholesterol-free, contains omega-3. It's trans fat-free. Meanwhile, the real science, the independent, peer-reviewed data, rarely makes it to the front of the package. Instead, we get marketing, and our hearts pay the price. The telltale signs of oil overload: many people have no idea they're suffering the consequences of chronic vegetable oil consumption. But your body might already be sending signals like fatigue and sluggishness, skin issues like acne or rashes, brain fog or poor memory, joint pain or stiffness, high blood pressure, chest tightness after meals, weight gain, especially around the belly. These can all be signs of systemic inflammation, oxidative stress, or even early cardiovascular damage, often made worse by hidden oils in your food. And here's the hard truth: You won't feel the damage happening inside your arteries until it's too late. That's why awareness is your first and best line of defense. What oils should you use instead? So what can you do? First, avoid the industrial seed oils. These include soybean oil, canola oil, corn oil, cottonseed oil, safflower oil, sunflower oil. Replace them with stable natural fats, such as 1. Extra virgin olive oil, rich in monosaturated fats, and polyphenols, great for salad dressings, dips, and low-heat cooking. 2. Avocado oil has a high smoke point and healthy fat profile, excellent for and roasting. 3. Coconut oil contains medium-chain triglycerides that support metabolism and brain health. Ideal for baking or frying. For ghee or grass-fed butter high in fat-soluble vitamins like a D and K2, adds rich flavor and supports heart health in moderation. 5. Beef, tallow, or lard. Traditional fats used for centuries, heat-stable and nutrient-dense. These fats don't just taste better, they support your body's natural inflammation control, stabilize blood sugar, and protect your heart rather than harm it. How to detox your kitchen? Here's your action plan. 1. Purge your pantry. Go through every bottle, box, and jar. Read the ingredient lists. If you see vegetable oil, soybean oil, canola oil, or any seed oil, consider tossing it. To switch to whole foods, cook meals from scratch using fresh ingredients, avoid ultra-processed snacks. Prioritize foods with fewer ingredients and no hidden oils. 3. Change how you cook. Stop deep frying in seed oils. Use oven baking, air frying, steaming, or gentle with stable fats. 4. Start small. If overhauling everything at once feels overwhelming, start with just one change. Switch your cooking oil. That alone will have a ripple effect on your health. 5. Support your body's healing. Add anti-inflammatory foods like wild-caught salmon, leafy greens, berries, turmeric, and green tea. Move daily, hydrate, and reduce processed sugar, which often works hand in hand with bad fats to promote inflammation. Your heart deserves better. We only get one heart, one set of arteries, one body. The tragedy is that millions of people around the world are unknowingly damaging their cardiovascular health with every bite. Not because they want to, but because they were told it was healthy. They were told vegetable oil was the better choice, that butter was bad, that cholesterol-free meant safe. But now you know the truth, and that truth can set you free. From chronic inflammation, from brain fog, from fatigue, and from the looming risk of heart disease. It starts with awareness, and it ends with a conscious choice. Next time you reach for the oil bottle, ask yourself, is this nourishing my heart or quietly destroying it?